Okay, need a motion to exit the closed session and resume the regular meeting Board of Ed. So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, on the motion.
Ms. Hudak?
Yes.
Mr. Pialillo?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Bermudez?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Walter?
Yes.
Mr. Page?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes. Everyone, please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll be brief with your president report. I just want to mention two things. I want to thank the members of the community, also the businesses and the staff who participated in the Kevin's Kids event this past weekend. I think overall the program went well again, and thank you to our community for their support. I know that the kids and the families of the children who benefit from this program will appreciate that very much. Also want to mention, I have in my report that after 7 years of legal wrangling, the U.S. Congress has finally replaced No Child Left Behind with a new law. Supposedly, the new law will have more flexibility. It takes away some of the onerous provisions of the No Child Left Behind. The regulations, though, are still to be developed by the U.S. Department of Education, and we'll have to see what they look like. But progress after 7 years since the former law actually sunset. With that, we have a series of presentations, the first of which is going to be the annual audit report. Mr. Lorenzo.
Yep, we have Dave Gannon here from Whiston Company. He's here to present the 2014 audit.
I should come in December more. I come in October, no one's usually here. So, before I start, I'll be brief so I don't visit. First thing I'd always like to tell you is that, the audit is a very time-consuming process. We're out here for 5 weeks during the whole part of the year. And in that time, your employees have to do their regular duties, as well as respond to our numerous requests. I always like to make sure I mention how professional, courteous, and just helpful your employees are during the audit process. It really is difficult to constantly respond to our requests and still go about your day, doing their daily duties, and also keep just such a professional and conscientious attitude. With that, I'd like to also congratulate the district on receiving, for the 19th straight year, the District of Excellence in Financial Reporting. That's quite an accomplishment. We've issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's the best opinion you can get. It's a clean opinion. It means that those financial statements are in accordance with the accounting principles. What I would tell you is that we don't make any material adjustments to those financial records. So when you get your monthly board packets and you get your monthly board secretary's report, you can have confidence that those numbers are right. Your fund balance at June 30, 2015 was $2.3 million, which was a slight decrease from the previous year. It's important to remember, out of that amount, more than half of it's already restricted for other purposes. $9,000 is excess surplus from this year, will be restricted for 16-17. $266,000 you actually used to balance your 15-16 budget. You have approximately $800,000 in capital gains reserves, just in case for emergencies. And your actual 2% unrestricted amount is $1.1 million. Capital Projects Fund represents the proceeds from the bond referendum that occurred during the year. One of the things that happened with the audit this year was the implementation of a new standard from GASB. The state of New Jersey had quite a difficult time implementing it. And until they were able to implement it, they weren't able to provide every district in the state with the information that was needed to report your financial statements. So for the first time ever, every school district in the state is required to report their portion of the net pension liability for PRS. The district's allocable portion is $19 million. So that is reported in the financial statements. One impact, because you have the regional day school and how that's accounted for, part of that net pension liability also gets allocated to the regional day school. So if we were to look at the financial statement this year, that financial statement for Regional Day specifically looks a lot different than you would normally see. You'll see a big, large deficit because it's on the full accrual-based accounting. That liability, which is a very long-term in nature, call it 30 years, has an impact on that net position. If you were to look at it without that, it'd be approximately $247,000 of unrestricted fund balance, which compared to last year was $207,000. But just looking at the numbers as it is on paper, it gets a little misleading. We've also performed a federal and state single audit, which we've issued unmodified opinions on compliance. That means you're spending your money for federal and state purposes appropriately. We've issued a report with government auditing standards in which if we had noted such significant deficiencies as material weaknesses or deficiency, that would be reported to you in that report. There are none. The district has a very strong system of internal controls, has for years, has done a very good job of maintaining that even through transition. We also issue an auditor's management report. We've reported no findings to you. Last year there was one finding, and that finding was corrective action taking this past year, and it's not repeated. So with that, if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Questions from the board members?
Will we be back to the regular October for next year?
Once the state provides the information,
The first day, as long as the state do it.
we should. They're confident that going forward, they just struggle with it. Literally the numbers didn't come out until November 13th. So literally 600, no audits, none of the 600 audits from the state got issued before November 13th. Really, as of December 1st, only 4 did. That's the impact.
Yeah, I also want to just extend my thank you to Dave and his firm. Like Dave said, this is an extensive process. This does span over 5 weeks. And Dave's firm is very patient with us because, like he said, we are doing our day-to-day stuff, and they're there 4 or 5 days a week with us, and when they need information, they're patient, and they're professional, and they make as tough as an audit is, they make it as easy as possible on us. So I appreciate that. And then as far as having a clean audit and receiving the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting, this is a district recognition. This is not just a board office recognition. I couldn't do this by myself. My staff could not do this by myself. So this is achievement for the entire district, for all the staff in the buildings and the departments, the administration, central office administration, and basically receiving this award shows the community that we have fiscal integrity, we are transparent, our financial statements are transparent, and we do put out high quality financial statements. So I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate the board on receiving this award for the 19th straight year, and hopefully when we submit our audit this year for review, we'll bring this award back for the 20th straight year. So thank you.
And thank you for all the hard work of the staff of the district, not just the citizens.
Maybe happy holidays, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dick. Next, let's see. Mrs. Leakey, are you up there? She's right here. Would you come up, please? We have a very special presentation, and really it's a Wounded Warrior presentation. I know Mrs. Leakey made this presentation at the Veterans Day at the Town Hall. But our president, Mr. Chapman, I believe Mr. Chapman is here?
Yes, he is.
Oh, super. I'm going to turn this over to you. Special award for one of our Wounded Warriors.
I'm sorry. Just bear with me a second. This is third time it's a charm. This story that I'm going to read to Mr. Chapman here was written by the middle school children. Do I need a microphone?
You're projecting.
I'm good? Okay. The first thing we did when we started to do this was listen to Ms. Blakey explain the Wounded Warrior Quilt Project. She explained the size of the quilt and the fabrics that we needed to use. She explained that it would contain fabrics that were red, white, and blue, but it was not necessary to do that. We all separated and went into a computer lab and did research and found out what other people had done for the Wounded Warriors quilt. Some of us printed out sample ideas for the quilt. Kate H. came up with an idea to use jean fabric and stripe fabric and writing messages on that fabric. Some of the students wanted to use stars, and some were originally thinking of adding a border of flags. Next, we sat down and had a powwow. We exchanged our ideas. Ms. Blakey helped by reminding us that we did not want it to get too busy looking. The next challenge was to figure out the design and the fabrics that we wanted to use. Ms. Blakey said that if we tried to collect jeans to use the fabric, we would end up with too many variables and it would not work out well. She suggested that we look for a cotton fabric that looked like jeans and that we could write messages on. We all agreed. Corbin G. came up with the idea to represent all military branches. Ms. Blakey thought that we wouldn't have enough time to order that fabric to get it into the quilt. Jonathan S. came up with the idea to add large stars in the corners. We started searching for fabrics in our classroom, and then Ms. Blakey brought in some of her own fabrics. One of the pieces of fabrics that we chose, Ms. Blakey said, had also been used in our 9/11 Remembrance quilt that we made here in Manchester. And we all thought that that was an excellent choice to use in this quilt. All the other fabrics that we chose were muted reds, whites, and blues. The extra students that were good at math started on the size and shape of the quilt. They figured out the size 62 by 82 would be the best. Show them that. They taped 4 pieces of graph paper together, each square representing 1 inch. They measured out the entire quilt, adding seam allowances all along the way. The quilt began to take shape. Each student that could sew on the machine was given one section to sew. Some of the students learned how to cut the fabric using new technology instead of shears. Some students marked the seam allowances of 1/4 of an inch so the students could sew the perfect seams. We also used special sewing attachments that could help keep the seams straight. Some of the students were set up at ironing boards to iron as the other students were sewing. Desiree Corbin, Victoria Emily, Nicolette W., Morgan, and Mrs. Armstrong were all on the sewing machines. And I want to tell you that most of those children are here today. And they began to sew the first parts of the quilt. The squares contained the branches of all armed forces. Brooke, M., Nicole, Olivia, and Madison began cutting, ironing, and measuring, and many other things to make this possible. While they were sewing these sections together, other students measured and cut out the pieces. Once the sections were sewn together, it was time to lay out the quilt to determine the placement of each branch. We all sewed together. Originally, the students had wanted stripes all the way around the quilt, but we realized it was going to be too big. The stripes were added to the top and bottom, and the stars made up the final border. Large stars were put in the corners of the quilt. All the students that participated in the extra group throughout the year were asked to write special messages that would go on the quilt. The messages were written by students who had nice handwriting. Once the quilt top was completed, it was ironed and brought to a long-arm quilter, Pat Brown, who did a magnificent job quilting the top and bottom fabrics together. We owe her our gratitude. Binding was added by Miss Blakey, and the label was designed by all of us and added to the quilt. We all enjoyed making this quilt. We're very excited to be here today. We all worked together collaboratively, and we had a lot of fun. Now I want to tell you a little bit about Steve. On 9/11/2001, Steve Chapman was a senior in high school. Like so many, especially in our neck of the woods, he was shaken by the attacks in our backyard and was determined to help. After graduating high school in June 2002, he enlisted in the United States Army and became an infantryman. In 2004, he was stationed in Sadr City, Iraq, his first tour in Iraq. His unit was tasked with patrolling the streets of Sadr City for insurgents. On September 7, 2004, 7 months into his first deployment, Stephen was riding in an armored tank while patrolling when an IED, improvised explosive device, detonated and destroyed the tank. More importantly, the IED injured Stephen and his fellow servicemen. The blast injured Stephen's right leg, singed and severed the top of his knuckles to his left hand. After the explosion, Stephen underwent 2 surgeries in Iraq to try and save his life. On 9/11/2004, Stephen returned to the United States and underwent 3 additional surgeries to his right leg at Walter Reed Hospital. Unfortunately, Stephen did lose his leg. He left Walter Reed on 10/12/2005. I can say that even though Stephen lost his leg, his spirit is strong. Today he spends time helping his father run his glass business, and he likes to ride on lawns. We, the students from Manchester Township Middle School, with the help of our teacher, Miss Blakey, give you this Wounded Warrior quilt with our thanks for your courage and your sacrifice that you made for us. pillowcase is yours.
Let's go.
And Mr. Trethewey?
Really? Yeah, Stephen, you're right, all right. Congratulations, buddy. I'm so proud of you. Now, I know you've gotten so many awards, and this is very special. But I do have a hawk pin for you. Good seeing you, buddy. Good seeing you. Congratulations. What are you? I don't know much more we can say after that. And thanks for remembering me. Just want to add one other thing. Our district together put together a fundraiser for Wounded Warriors. And I would say one of the major starters of that donation fund or drive was Elaine Payton. And through her work and through the work of all of our schools, we were able to accumulate it. We will donate to the Wounded Warrior Program $1,000. So thank you to all the staff for keeping on with that theme. I have Mrs. Driver, I believe. Is she in the audience somewhere? Okay. And we have some winners for our Patriot Pen essays. I know Mr. Dupree is here, right? Mr. Dupree here? Yes. Yes, come on up. Thank you for being here. You go over.
Good evening. Excuse me. The Patriots Pen essay is a wonderful essay that is through the VFW, and both Mr. Trethewey and I in the previous district did it, and we had such great participation. And we believed that we wanted to be here for Manchester because Manchester, has such respect and honor for our veterans. And this is something that they sponsor. And I have to tell you, we had 100% participation from the middle school students. 6 students were selected as winners of the Patriots Pen essay, and it was an interdisciplinary project. The social studies teachers taught the students, the graphic organizers, what freedom is to them, and then our language arts teachers, the students wrote in there. So it truly was a school-wide project, and I thank the students and the staff. I thank Mrs. Saracino, our history and language arts supervisor, who had so much to do with it and actually dropped off our essays. So I believe the gentlemen are now going to present the winners of the essays.
Thank you very much. First, thank you very much for inviting us, Mr. Trethewey, and the board members. I want to commend every student that participated in this because in reality you're all winners because you're participating in a patriotic event and some of you actually got paid to participate. Now we all enjoy the efforts that our military patriots perform for us in guarding the gates of freedom, and you young students will be doing your part by participating in a program like this, writing about something that's important to you that involves freedom. When you get to high school, we have an additional program called Voice of Democracy, and the gifts are even larger to help you go to college. So keep that in mind that this is just the beginning, and I commend you all for participating. I will announce the winners now so we don't take up any more of your time. And if you'd step forward and shake Mr. Phillips' hand, and if the parents want to get a picture real quick, we'll pause for a second. Our first winner is, and this is for the 6th grade, the first place winner is Adrian Piscardi. One for you, and congratulations. Fantastic. The commander of the auxiliary and the president and the Veterans of Foreign Wars, commander of Lake Coast Post 10,061, proudly present the letter of achievement to Adrian Piscardi, first place winner of 6th grade annual Patriots Pen Youth Essay. You are hereby commended for your outstanding essay, which was selected as this year's winner for the patriotic theme, What Does Freedom Mean to Me? Your first place and an admirable performance helps support the programs and furthers the aims and ideals of the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States. On behalf of our veterans, thank you for your performance. We are very proud of you. Congratulations.
Mom here.
Get it? Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. Forgot your mom.
And our second place winner from the 6th grade is Ethan Michael Stewart. The plaque is very similar, so we're not going to read them all, but if you want to get a picture, you turn around and stand next to Mr. Phillips.
Where do I go?
Great job. Thank you. Now, we also are handing out the essays with them. We have copies of them in addition to your checks. And the plaque, there is also a return of your essay you can keep for a keepsake. Trevor David Jarolowitz. Good, congratulations. You got some pictures coming, so you want to turn around?
Wait, one more.
What do I do?
Next, this is, excuse me, second place for the,
Where do I go?
thank you, Marissa Klauberg. Stand over there, Chuck. Very good. Oh, someone else?
Where do I go?
And for the 8th grade, the first place winner is Jaden Passos. Congratulations. Very good. Fantastic. Next, you have the voice of democracy. And Melanie Yetman. Congratulations. Very good. Can you stop for a picture? You got your effort? I don't know if we'd have got this much for this commission. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Wait. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next presentation, and again, they're all this we're very fortunate again to have
I don't know
Eagle
how to
Scout.
get
Mr. Redbach,
talking to you about being
there he is, back.
he knows how to get to it. So you're gonna send him on
I'll give you a card.
Oh, absolutely. That's super. Thank you.
Superb.
In order to manage to just get through there.
Nice pen.
All right, you're a Hawk man.
Yeah. Well, listen, my daughters went here, so.
Thank you, Dennis.
My name is Kevin Redbach. I'm the committee chairman of Troop 350 Boy Scouts. We meet out in Whiting. Tonight, the board is going to recognize one of our scouts for achievement. He's made Eagle Scout. The numbers, everybody, different people you talk to, anywhere from 4 to 5% of boys make Eagle Scout. But it's a big accomplishment. So Kyle Doctor is being recognized tonight by the board. And again, I thank the board for always supporting us with our Scout program. So Kyle's going to talk a little bit about what his Eagle project was.
Last August 2014, I worked on a project out in Lakewood at the Beth Ann Shalom, it's the Jewish Reform Temple, and I worked on a garden for the Jewish Federation of Ocean County. It was a successful project. A lot of scouts come out, and now it's a fully functioning garden that we'll be using for hopefully a bunch of years forward.
Great.
Attending the Eagle Scout ceremony was very impressive. Quite a few folks came out, including quite a few staff members who had Kyle as a student. And that's reflective of a couple of things, both the quality of the young man that stands before you, and also his accomplishments. And as I said at his ceremony, the things that led him to become an Eagle Scout and complete his project are going to serve him well beyond just the next couple of years, well into the future. So on behalf of the board, I congratulate you. We have a plaque for you here. And if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Redbach, I'm trying to remember what you said at the ceremony. He is the 13th Eagle Scout, 20th Eagle Scout over the last 10 or 12 years?
About 10 years.
About 10 years. And that's a tribute not only to the young men, but also to the men and women who serve as Scout leaders in our community over all the years. I believe there were quite a few former Scout leaders who were also at the ceremony. So that's really impressive. So thank you to the men and women who have served as Scout leaders in our community for the past 10 years. Appreciate it.
Good shot.
That's not your 20th chin. Yep.
All right, so next presentation we have Mrs. Sarita Dodd, President of the Manchester Township PTA, who has a presentation for ETS, I believe.
I do. At the beginning of the year, the PTA offers each of our schools the opportunity to have all of their teachers join the PTA in support of the PTA. We do programs in every one of the schools, Regional Day, the elementary schools, the middle school, and the high school. And tonight I want to present to the Manchester Township Elementary School 100% participation. They will be entitled to and get a sweet treat day where we will feed them lots of delectable sweet things after the holidays because they'll already be off of it.
Thank you, Sarita. And again, I have to say, our PTA does do a great job here. And anybody doesn't know, we have one PTA for the entire district. Every school participates, and they get funds from the PTA. They fund a lot of programs that we're not able to do. Again, on behalf of the board and myself, thank you for all you do, Sarita, and the PTA. Thank you. It's a great night here. We're now looking at the MTEF, the mini grant presentations. We really have a number of awards giving out to our staff. I thought I saw Mr. DeSimone and Mrs. Malloy. Are these you guys around? All right.
Thanks.
Mrs. Malloy, that's it.
Excuse me.
She's leaving you hanging. There you go. There we go.
I think maybe in the interest of time, we'll just, instead of having all the teachers come up, maybe we'll just kind of give the presentation and then go outside in the level and give them their fake checks.
That's fine, however you want.
Yeah, I did take a picture of everybody anyway.
Yeah, they probably won't have it up.
They should come up.
Okay, all right. All right, so I'm Jeff DeSimone. We're from the Manchester Township Educational Foundation. And every year we run a golf outing that raises money for things that we donate back to the schools. One of our big things that we try to run is the teacher mini grant. And previous years we've had teachers from the district submit for various things, various technology projects. And this year we received 19 mini grant submissions, 3 from the middle school, 1 from the high school, 4 from the elementary school, 3 from Regional Day, and 8 from Ridgeway School. And happy to say that all 19 of those grants were funded in some way or another. So the estimated cost from the teachers was about $13,600, and we had the money to do that, and we have divvied up the grants in the following manner. So from the middle school, Mrs. Parr, I don't know if she's here. And her grant was, she was asking for $860. This grant was for Makerspace, and it actually impacts 700 students. So for a cost of $860 to impact 700 students this year alone, and probably into the future, was definitely a great project to fund. Ms. Laporte? Congratulations. Your project was the Monarch Way Station. That was a $400 request, and that impacts 650 students. So once again, it's a great project, and we're happy to fund that. Congratulations. Mrs. Morgan. They're all great projects, but this one I think really stood out this year. It impacts 300 students. It was for a beach revitalization project. It ties in science, it ties in a lot of different things. I wish you could explain it all. Maybe, we can't have you explain it all. It was for $1,460, and again, it impacts 300 students, and I would personally want to be involved with that, and I think other members also would like to help out when you go down there. You want to give a brief explanation?
Basically, it's a grant to restore the shore. It's a revitalization project where we'll be planting, and I'm doing it with Mrs. Laporte,
We'll be planting plugs to regrow the dune grass, and we'll be able to take the kids out to the beach, and it ties in with our ecology unit, so it will be an ongoing lesson all year. And we are working in partnership with the Island Beach State Park, and they will be sending speakers to our classrooms as well as instructors who will come in and teach the children about that area. So it is an awesome, awesome, awesome program. And I am so glad that we were chosen to do this, because now the kids are going to really enjoy it. And we welcome your participation as well.
Thank you. All right. From the elementary school, Mr. Harrigan, Paul Harrigan. He put in for Spelling City premium membership, and I believe that covers, there was 4 teachers. I think it covers
A whole grade level.
the whole grade level. So that impacts about 110 students. It was a cost of $265. Jennifer Gilbert from the elementary school. As Jennifer is walking up, and the other teachers, Danielle Hickey, Danielle Knight, and Stacy O'Connor, they were the co-applicants. They asked for iPads to bridge interactive learning was the name of their project. It impacts 80 students, and the ask was for $2,100, and we were happy to grant that to you guys. Sharianne Giacomo?
We're expecting on her.
Okay, all right. And that was for mini iPads. There was, that impacts 18 students, and that was about $370. One grant that we did not approve, and I don't want to say we didn't approve, it was Mr. Portaways, who had asked for a jump rope team. We felt bad that we couldn't fund that because it didn't really match our requirements, but we're happy to announce that we didn't want to let it go unfunded. So we spoke to some people in town, and the Otts have, Mr. and Mrs. Ott, have agreed to fund that in the name of Nicholas. Susan Doyle from the Regional Day School. Oh yes, Miriam Hill and Jessica.
Yep.
This was for Boardmaker Plus. It impacts 60 students at a cost of $790. And Boardmaker Plus, I understand, is a software application.
Yes, it offers communication, receptive and expressive language skills. We can do some really fabulous things with doing activities, and so it's a great tool. Great tool.
Great. Happy we could help you with that. Mrs. Pennypacker from Regional Day. An iPad or an iPad and applications to go along with it, $454. You're welcome. And that impacts about 50 students as well. Mrs. Lambusta from the Regional Day School. I apologize for making you move. It was projected in the future. It impacts 10 students. Cost of $709, and I believe that was the Elmo projector or Elmo document cam, just like the one that's up here. All right. Tina Spinelli, Danielle O'Connell. Yours gave me some of the biggest problems.
I'm sure. I have that.
Congratulations. You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was for $1,183. It impacts 300 students. All these projects impact this number of students this year, but this equipment's going to stay around for a long time. So it's not perpetual, but it'll repeat itself every couple of years. And what it is that Tina had asked for was a paint dryer. So it's this huge contraption, and you're going to have a big truck pull up at the high school. I didn't It's going to deliver it right there, so I'll get in touch with you when I think it's coming. You're welcome. Okay. And Ridgeway School. Ridgeway School had the most applications this year, so you should get a special award. I think there was 8 overall from the school alone. So, Crystal Castro. The project was QR codes in the classroom and 4 mini iPads. It impacts 20 students.
Crystal, you can stay right there. I'm going to bunch everything in.
And that cost is around $1,000. Jessica Parsons. The name of the project was I Learn with iPad, impacts 6 students for $374. Kathleen Antonelli. It was 3 Kindle Fire tablets, impacts 30 students for about $500. Kimberly Castigliola. Did I say that right? Castigliola?
Oh, there you go.
And Bridget Cahill. This was for iPads for the resource and special ed. Impacts about 15 students at a cost of about $812. Raquel Pachansky. I don't think she's here, right?
I was going to accept on her behalf.
Come on. This was called SLAM, S-L-A-M, Speak, Listen, and the rest got cut off from my paper, so I don't remember.
They're voice recorders.
Yeah, Speak, Listen, Analyze, and Master. I'm sorry, I apologize. And they're voice recorders that I guess the kids could use to do those things with. So that cost was about $225. Gina Foss. Gina's project was for an iPad. It impacts 16 students, and the cost was $540. Ms. Hennig. And this was for Kindles for Learning. It impacts about 21 students at a cost of around $199. And Mrs. Zeller. And this, again, it's seeing the bigger picture. It's an Elmo document cam and a cart for it to go on. It impacts 21 students, again, just for this year alone. That will be around for a little while, and that was a cost of around $860. I'd like to just say a couple things. I mean, you know, we work hard to try and raise money, but really the credit should go for the teachers because they spend a lot of time in the classroom, and this is extra effort. And you know, they could say it benefits them a little bit, but it really benefits the kids in the classroom. And you know, I commend all of you for putting the extra time in to, you know, to get this money to do that and bring that technology into your classroom. And the board should recognize you, your principals should recognize you, but the parents should recognize you too. A lot of times that goes unseen, and you know, really it should be noted. You know, you should be congratulated on that. So, in closing, thank you. We, as a foundation, we could use all the help in the world. We could use more volunteers. The more volunteers we have, the more programs like this we can run. I think right now there's about 6 or 7 of us, and you know we run pretty ragged trying to do the things we do. So I would really hope to reach out to the people in the audience to volunteer and help us with this, because it is a good project. It is a good program. So.
Of course, yes. Congratulations.
All right, can everybody see me? Yeah. Try it up here. There we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And one more, just to make sure nobody's eyes are closed. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
You flew off pretty big. I think you got me beat. I'm good. How are you? Very good. I like it a lot. Charlie Brown. Yeah, I want to watch that.
Oh God, I want to see that one.
Merry Christmas.
Meeting is still in session. Yeah, quiet, please.
I'll put it up.
Before we take a break, before we have our presentation on the block schedule, I just want to take a moment to recognize 2 members of the board. This is sort of bittersweet for me and the board. 2 of our members will no longer be board members come January 1. And I just want to take an opportunity to recognize Kevin Oliver from Lakehurst, longtime board member in Lakehurst, who's been on and off our representative. I know I've consulted with him on a number of occasions on a number of issues that relate to both our district and Lakehurst. I know Lakehurst is going to miss him. Personally, I'm going to miss him. A graduate of Manchester Township High School. Kevin, I just want to say thank you for your years of service both to the Lakehurst School District and also to Manchester. I should ask you how many years overall? 20 years. 20 years.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Picture. One more time.
Oh, wait a minute. Thank you for your.
This is also James Griffin's last meeting. He's been with us, I believe, 5 years. Six. Came on at the end of a term for a member who stepped down and was reelected along with myself 3 years ago. A parent of several children in the district, always comes up with some interesting points of view on matters because he's close to what goes on with his own kids. And I know I've picked his brain on a number of occasions about different matters affecting the school district. I know he's a busy guy because he works for a contractor. And as someone who came on board, when he came on board, I just want to say thank you, James, for your years of service. We're going to miss you. I know you're going to still be around. You still got kids in the school. So you're not going anywhere.
Congratulations. That's where I'm getting on eBay.
Okay, we're going to take a brief 5-minute break to refresh, use the restroom facilities, and so those of you who do not wish to stay can leave, and then we will resume the regular meeting of the board. 5 minutes. This is a presentation on a possible move to block scheduling at the high school. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Really, the purpose tonight is to just give you kind of an overview of some of the things that we've been looking at as a district, basically as a high school, staff members, administrators, to just give you as the board members and the public, just give you a little view of a summary of some of the things that we talk about when we investigate the block schedule. I was fortunate enough of giving my age away about 20 years ago to be involved in a restructuring process at Jackson Memorial High School. And part of that restructuring process was to looking at the block schedule. Things were a lot different then. There was no school in Ocean County that had looked at a block schedule. So we basically had to go almost out of state for a couple schools. We did a lot of research on it. The teachers were very involved in it. And basically what happened in that time is we made the move to block scheduling, and they still have that. The same type of schedule we did. It did wonders for that school, for Jackson at this time. And the principal at that time said to me, he said, you'll know what type of program you have is it all depends on when you leave. When you leave this district, let's see what happens to the program. And the thing I'm most proud about is when I left Jackson, and it was a great district, 20 years later, they're still doing the same program, block schedule. They opened another high school with the same program. Bricktown has used the same program as Jackson. Both of their high schools are doing it. Lacey, Barnegat, those are schools in Ocean County. When we did the block, Monsignor Donovan at the time, maybe it was St. Joe's at the time, Monsignor Donovan, now Donovan Catholic, came to us, and we helped them start their program. So a lot of good things happened, but a lot of work from a lot of good people. And really, the most important part is our students benefited. And our students benefited greatly, mainly because of the opportunities it presented. It did a lot of positive things for the district. So at this point, we're looking at things here, and we did get a lot of input from staff and so forth. But let me go through some of the things that we talked about in a block schedule and give you a little idea of where we are. Oh, thank you, Ovana. So on the agenda tonight is basically just talk a little bit about what is block schedule, because there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of different combinations. Different schools do it different ways. We're in the process of looking at a couple different things. Next question we'll try to answer is, why should we consider block scheduling in Manchester? Why would it work in Manchester? Are we different than Jackson? Are we different than Brick? Are we different than some of the other schools? And what are some of our needs? Because really, a program has to fit the individual needs of the district. What are the advantages and what are the concerns? In any new program, obviously you're going to see advantages, but there's also times when you change that you have to be concerned about things. So we want to address those concerns. What would it look like? What would our schedule have a chance to look like? How were we investigating the schedule? What did we do? What was our process? And we have some reports from some of the committees, and we've had a number of committees working in the district, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And I'll pick up some of my, not minions, but some of my committee people to come up and talk a little bit about the report. So basically, what is block schedule? And you look at two different types of things. The first is our traditional schedule. Right now in Manchester, we're about 48 minutes long. There are 7 instructional classes and 1 lunch period, and that comes out to be about 336 minutes of instruction. In a block schedule, what you have, in a traditional schedule, if you think about it, and I don't know if anybody would actually take a job that would be like this, but basically what it is our students go into a room, have a boss or a teacher, they sit at a desk for 48 minutes, then a bell rings, they all get up and go to another place, another office with another boss, and do something totally unrelated for 48 minutes, then another bell rings, and then they go again and again, and that goes for 8 times during the year, 8 times during the day. So a lot of difficulties with that, in that they don't build up a lot of relationships, they don't build up a lot of things that the demands are now. And really, when you look at it, it's the demands of colleges. We're asking our kids to be prepared for college. That's really our goal. We should be preparing our kids for college, or we should be preparing for a career. And those are 2 of our most important, not just to graduate, because that's certainly a goal, but we want our kids to have the same opportunities every other school has, and even more so, because that's what our responsibility is as a board. It's my responsibility as a superintendent, our responsibility as teachers, to really give those students the opportunities to be successful. In a block schedule, there's 3 types really. There's a 4x4, which means you have 4 classes every day for a semester, basically from September to January. And then after January is over, you have 4 new classes starting in February. There's advantages to that schedule. There's an A-B schedule, which means you have 8 classes. 4 the first on Monday, 4 different ones on Tuesday, 4 different ones on Wednesday, because you're going in longer periods. The hybrid is a little of both. Some classes are semester, they start in September and finish in January, and some classes start in September and go every other day all the way to the end of the year. So there's a combination of those 2. The classes will be roughly about 85 minutes, 88 minutes. There will be 8 classes per year, so automatically our students will have 1 more class to take, 1 more opportunity to take whatever classes they want. And I know Mrs. Raimondo did a little survey, and they talked about some of our students. If you had the possibility of taking another class, what would you like? And they had some great ideas, whether it was forensic, whether it was astronomy, whether it was something in the physical education part. You have a lot of different courses that they can't take now, because our courses are only 7, and giving them the option to take 1 more class gives them the opportunity to be able to put something on their transcript that makes people in Manchester a little different than everybody else, because we'll have different types of classes. And those classes would be generated by the teachers and the students, whatever their likes are, whatever their electives, whatever their interests are. Instruction-wise, it will be 340 to 352 minutes. So over the year, you get 1 additional course, anywhere roughly between 12 to 48 hours additional of instruction. Not changing the length of the day. The length of the day is going to be exactly the same. But you could have additional 12 to 48 hours of instruction. Okay, why? Why would this schedule, why would we look at this schedule as opposed to, it's always worked before in Manchester? Well, we have a couple of things when you look at what our students are working with. First of all, the education part. That's shifted totally now. When I was teaching, just a couple of years ago, a lot of it is the teachers were the dispenser of information. They knew what you needed to know, and we would tell you, and then things would not change. But right now in our society now, with the advent of technology and with computers, our kids have access to all that information. They don't really need us as teachers to give them information. You got the information. You can pick that up in a computer. But the teacher's challenge is to get the students to be able to work with that information. What do I do? Because that's really what the jobs are today. The jobs have changed a little. Their jobs used to stay the same for 20, 30 years. People would stay in the same job for 30 years, 40 years. That same company, this is what I'm working. Nowadays, it's not unusual to have 7, 8, 10 different jobs during your career. And those jobs are different. In our elementary schools, we're probably trying to educate children to take jobs over that they haven't even been invented yet. And that's really the challenge. And we know how the society is today. The workforce is very challenging. We have a lot of people getting in college, getting even degrees, but not able to get careers or not even to get jobs. And that's a scary thing. We want what's best for our students in Manchester. We want them, because they're competing not only with students in Manchester, but they're competing not only with students in Ocean County, but they're competing across the state and even across the country for jobs. And really, we owe it to them to give them every advantage we can. So you need to prepare for college and career. One of the 3 best skills that when they interviewed a Fortune 500 company, what do they look for in somebody what they're going to hire? The major companies, what are they looking for? Well, they're looking for communication skills, they're looking for collaboration skills,
and they're looking for the ability to function as part of the team. Those things weren't part of what we did in teaching 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It was basically the teacher getting up and lecturing, and everybody sitting at a desk and doing their own work. Now I will say, our teachers do a lot. We do a lot more things in the classroom, but we're still handcuffed with 48 minutes. You're not going to be able to go with the same depth that you need to. Too many students not graduating on time. Looking at our statistics, our graduation rate isn't good. It's one of the lower parts of Ocean County. That's something that we have to address. Too many of our students are not graduating on time. They're dropping out, and without that high school diploma, that puts them at a terrific disadvantage. It's our responsibility to find as many opportunities as we can for our students to graduate, and this is one way to do it. Limited opportunities for students who have fallen behind or catch up. We see a student who, for example, fails English in 9th grade. What happens to that student? Well, in 10th grade, that student who failed 9th grade has to take English 9 and English 10. And a student who has trouble with English, now we're asking them to take 2 English classes in 10th grade. And when they get to 11th, they may have to take 2 or even 3 English classes. Because the days of summer school are gone. It used to be if you failed a class, you'd go to summer school, the school would pay for it, and you're set. Our students now, if they have to go to summer school, they have to pay. Their parents have to pay, and it's not cheap to get a course. So providing opportunities for students to be able to catch up so that they can graduate with the rest of their class. That's really what, no student wants to fail. They want to pass, and if they're given the opportunity to catch up, and if they've had a difficult time in English in 9th grade, they can retake that class and get back on track without having to double up in English. Need my glasses here. Limited opportunities to take additional course or event. Right now, we're limited in what we can. If you're you want to major in math or you want to major in science, we don't have the same type of courses that some of the other schools do because we're limited with our program of studies. Jackson, Brick, they're able to offer more courses than we do. And that's not fair to our kids. Our kids, if they're challenged, they would love to take a different science. They would love to take a forensics class. They would love to take an astronomy class. They would love to take another math class or an English class or a social studies class. All of those things would be possible, and that puts them on that same track or even higher than some of the other schools. And again, that's something that our kids deserve to have. Opportunities for varied instruction, different instruction, implementation of technology, higher level thinking. All of those things now become possible in 85 minutes. We now have more and more technology, so technology is no longer, let's wait till next Tuesday that I can go to the computer lab. Those computers are there right now. And we're there in 3 to 8, 9 to 12. We're trying to get very close to getting a one-on-one. That means every class you go into, you should be able to use a computer in class. And that's really our goal, because that's what our kids have to compete against. Everybody, no matter what job you have, you're looking at technology. You need to do that. My father-in-law was a mechanic. Never touched a computer in his life. Right now, if you're a mechanic, you got to have a computer. It's all diagnostics. The world has changed. We need to have our students to have the opportunities to be successful. And that's really where we're coming from this. It's to give our students the opportunities to be more successful. Fewer subjects to focus on at one time. Basically, right now, we have our students working at 7 different classes for the whole year. And that's sometimes very challenging, especially if you have those higher level maths, higher level science, higher level English, higher level history. That's very challenging. When you have 7 of them, you're not be able to go into so much depth. When you have 4 subjects to concentrate on, that's all we're looking at, 4 subjects at a time. You're able to concentrate on those particular subjects and work through them, and obviously the success rate is going to be much higher. Lower student-teacher ratio. If you believe, like I believe, that our teachers working with our students is the best situation, then that's what we're really looking for. My goal is to get our teachers working with fewer students at a time so that they can have a better rapport and be able to work with our students better. If our teachers have 150 students during the day, That's too much. They're not able to get to know the students, they're not able to work with the students, they're not able to individualize. Everybody has a favorite teacher, but if you have only 4 teachers to work with and our students, there's so much more rapport you can build with that teacher. And I think if the teachers and the students are put together, they're going to be successful. Because I know what our staff is in Manchester, and I know our students in Manchester. And given the opportunities, they're going to be successful. The one thing I will say is moving to a block schedule is not going to solve everything. That's not the answer to everything. Really, what a block schedule does is it provides students with more opportunities to be successful. But the key to the success of any program is still the students, the teachers, and the parents. That will never change. All a block schedule does is give the students and the teachers more opportunities to be successful. And that's what a schedule can do. What are the advantages of schools using a block schedule? Now, like I said before, 20-some years ago, we implemented this in Jackson, and we saw some of the changes. Right now, around Ocean County, and I think our visitation committee is going to talk a little bit about some of the schools they visited. But what are the things that happen that are pretty much uniform with any school that has a block schedule? Well, the graduation rate increases. Why? Because the students are focusing on 4 classes instead of 7 classes. And they're much more successful with that. If students fall behind, they're able to pick it up and graduate. That's really one of the key parts of the block schedule, is you get the graduation rate to increase. More kids are successful. They're not handed a diploma, they're still earning the diploma, but the graduation rate will increase. And that's one area, when I look at a block schedule, that's an area that we need in Manchester, because our graduation rate isn't where it should be. Attendance rate increased, both students and staff. Believe it or not, when you go into a block schedule, it's less hectic. You're not dealing with 8 different subjects or 7 different subjects. You're dealing with 4 at a time. The attendance rates go up. The discipline referrals are reduced. It's a different atmosphere when you're focusing on classes and you're doing less walking in the halls, going back and forth, and you're able to focus on the classes that you need to be successful. Grades have improved. All of this is basically what happens when you go to a block schedule. Why are the grades improved? Because the rapport between the teachers and the students are different. I no longer have 150 students I'm worried about. I'm only worrying about 75. I can grade papers. I can do essays. I can do essays for 75 and sit down and individualize, find out what the students are having trouble with, and work with them very closely, almost on a one-on-one basis, because the student-teacher ratio is so low. Better rapport with students and teachers, that happens. More in-depth learning, and we talked about the difference between covering a lot of topics or covering fewer topics in more depth. Attitudes about school improve, students, staff, and parents. When we put it into Jackson, we did a survey after the first year, overwhelmingly popular. I can tell you that in Virginia, there was, since 1995 to the year 2000, there was 201 schools that went to block schedule. After all those years, there was 1 school out of 201 that wanted to go back to the traditional schedule. 200 students, 200 schools stayed because they had good results. More course selections, again, it gives our students more opportunities to be successful. What a great thing to have on your resume when you have different courses in there that maybe other schools don't even offer. And that's really an advantage for Manchester. And that's, again, going back to, we want to do what's best for our students and giving them a chance to compete against schools in Jackson or Brick or Lacey or any of the schools around. That's what we owe our students, to give them an opportunity to have more courses. And our teachers are willing to teach those courses. They've suggested, I could teach this class, I could teach a forensics class, I can teach this different calculus class, I can teach those. Those are things that we have here, but we're handcuffing our staff and our students because we don't have enough room in our schedule now. Continuity of schools that have changed, basically they stay. When they're in the block schedule, they stay because they like the schedule. Here's the concerns, and these are concerns I've heard 20 years ago, and they're legitimate concerns. They're concerns I would have if somebody said I was going to change from a traditional schedule to a block schedule. First of all, retention. Are we going to forget everything? You may not have a math class, instead of just over the summer, it may be 5 months instead of 2 months. Well, what the studies have found, and it really was not a problem in Jackson when we did it, we were watching very closely because that's something that we were concerned with. The first thing is, what information do we need to retain? If you're memorizing something or it's a fact, yeah, you'll probably forget it after the first 4 to 6 weeks. After the first 4 to 6 weeks, you'll forget a lot. After that, the difference between 6 weeks and 8 weeks, or 8 weeks and 10 weeks, it levels off. But the point is if it's memorized things, you can pick that back up. When I was in 4th grade, I knew all the capitals of the 50 states. Yes, there were 50 states when I was in 4th grade. But I knew them. I forgot them the next summer. Even though I was in 5th grade, I forgot what I learned in 4th grade because it was memorized. It was something I had to know rote by. That's the way I learned it. So those things you will have a tendency to forget. But those things you can pick back up. The skills and the concepts you'll remember because it's the way you were taught. And that's the second part, is how was the material learned? How were you taught? If somebody's lecturing to you and you listen to that, studies show that you remember about 5% of that. So if somebody lectures for 60 minutes, they'll probably got 5% of that you'll remember. That's a small part. But if you're actively involved in it, if you're involved with activities, if you're involved in a computer, if you're involved in a discussion, then your percentage of remembering that stuff jumps up to 50, 60, 70%. And that's basically what it is. It's how you're taught. That's the most important part for the retention. And last thing is the length of time. It's just every week you don't forget more and more. It levels off. So if it's something over 4 months, it's pretty much the same as if you forgot it in 4 months, you're not going to remember any more or less than 6 months. Results from other schools. And I can tell you every school that we've visited, every school that I've been associated with in Jackson, it has not been a problem as far as retention. There are some subjects that you have to be careful of. And I would say something like a world language. That's something because you got to know vocabulary there. So that's something you prioritize, and you may take Spanish 1 the first half of the year and Spanish 2 the second half of the year. And when you do that, that really improves your comprehension when you talk about language. And one of the things you can do is when we did this in Jackson, we had several students who were very big into world languages. They ended up taking 4 years of Spanish and 4 years of French. They had 8 years of foreign language before they even graduated high school. They were way ahead of anybody else when they went to college because they had 4 years of two different languages. And that's something that you can do in a block schedule. Testing time. When do we take the test? First thing is if people are concerned about, what about the state test? Right now it's the PARCC. Used to be the HESPA, now it's the PARCC. Well, from the state they realize there's so many schools in the block scheduling that the PARCC is given twice a year for those people in the block schedule. If you're taking algebra the first half of the year, your PARCC test will be given in January, just when you're finishing the class. And if you take algebra the second half of the year, you'll be taking a PARCC test in May or June at the end of the year. They give it twice for block scheduling schools. AP testing is only given once. It's given in May. So there's something that you have to change around. So you would do an alternating block. So you would have, basically you would have English or history or whatever AP exam you're taking, you'd have that the full year. You wouldn't stop in January and then take the test in May. That's like me asking you to now take your final exam after you finished in history in June, take your final exam in November. You're not going to do well on that, no matter what schedule you're in. So you move that schedule around so your AP testing is given right at the end of the class. Change. It's very difficult to change in education. It's like we've always done this the way. Why do we have to change? Why? It's working now. It's working sometimes, but sometimes change is necessary in order to get better. I make the analogy, when I was getting a new pair of shoes, it's always tough. I always love to have my older pair of shoes on. I never want to change them because they're so comfortable. But eventually, you got to change them because that's what you need to do. You have to change in order to get better. And if you want to compete against other schools, other students, because that's what you're going to do, whether you're going to college, whether we're going to a career, whatever we're doing, we're competing against everybody. You want to have the most opportunities as possible. First year courses in 4x4, change, time on task, focus. One people, some teachers will say, and it was a legitimate concern when we first started, is you have students for 85 minutes. They're not going to pay attention for 85 minutes. They're going to be all over the place. Well, the only analogy I can make it is my wife, and there are other teachers around here. My wife teaches kindergarten. She has those students the entire day. So I have teachers saying, well, yeah, but they do different things. That's exactly right. You have to do different things. You can't sit there for 80 minutes and talk. You can't do 80 minutes of anything. You have to change what you're doing. So in an 80-minute class, our students should be doing at least 3 or 4 different things. Whether it's working on a computer, working in groups, working in discussions, listen to a lecture, all of those things are different things. All of them would probably be like 15 to 20 minutes, and then they're changing. Just like when I observed the middle school math department or the middle school English department, they're all doing block. And those kids are doing very well, and those are 80-some minute classes. Our middle school students are doing it. Our kindergarten students are doing it. I'm sure our high school students are. What would it look like? What's the schedule look like every day for our students? And this is just a sample. First of all, here's a sample of a weekly schedule. You would have, say, algebra, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 84 minutes, 85 minutes, whatever it comes out to be. You would have history, second period, every day, boom, 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 boom. Meet with the same teacher, 5 days. Pretty much what you're doing now. Third period, you'd have a lunch somewhere in there, and you'd have world language. Third period every day, all the way through. Now let's suppose you're in band. Well, if you're in band, you can't stop in January. You got to go through the whole year. A band person's going to go through the whole year because that's what the course is. So you would alternate your days from band to phys ed. You may have band on Monday, phys ed on Tuesday, band on Wednesday, phys ed on Thursday, band on Friday, phys ed on following Monday, and so on and so forth. So you'll have 90 days of band and 90 days of phys ed. Because band's important that you have all year. I talked to the journalism teacher. Journalism, advanced journalism is important to have the whole year. So you have advanced journalism the whole year, but that would be alternating block. This is what a yearly schedule might look like. You would have algebra first period, first and second marking period, and then in February, you get biology for the second half of the year. Second period could be history the first half of the year, and then you switch over at the end of January to English. Third would be world language the first half of the year, and then you may have art the second half of the year. And the fourth period, you'd have band PE all the way through. That would not change. That would stay the same. So that gives you a little idea what a block would look like. Very consistent, very same thing, algebra, and you're only dealing with 4 subjects at a time, and that's really the important part. Investigating the block. What have we been doing? Last year, we came up with 5 committees reporting to a steering committee. At that time, we had 55 teachers that volunteered. I asked, is anybody interested in serving on a committee to look at block scheduling? I had 55, I shouldn't say 55 teachers, 55 staff members. Some were guidance counselors, some were child study team, some were teachers, some people from the media center, that type of stuff. But 55 people sat on the committees, and they emailed me to volunteer because they wanted to be a part of Let's Looking at It. And they did a lot of good work during that last year. This year, we have not had as many people volunteer. We're still moving forward because there's still some people that are meeting with us because it's important to have input. It's important to have input from staff. It's important to have input from students. It's important to have input from parents. And that's really the next step that we're getting to. So you'll look at the 5 committees. We have a curriculum committee, and that's the committee that looks at what the subjects are going to be and what we could actually change, what subjects can we add, what subjects can we modify. A professional development committee, what do we need for our teachers to be able to teach in longer periods. That is scheduling committee. That is what's the schedule going to look like, and have people make suggestions, because not every school that does block scheduling does it the same. Visitation committee, and that's where we visited all the schools that have block scheduling. They had all different versions of block scheduling, and taking a look at those schools. And finally, an evaluation committee, which is very important. Evaluation committee is setting up to see where we are now What are our strengths and what are our weaknesses? What are the things that we have to be concerned about? One of them I told you is graduation rate. Concerned about that. I think we're all concerned about that, having students graduate. But also grade point averages, also being able to excel or accelerate in certain subjects, all of those things. So the evaluation committee is going to take a look at our statistics the last couple years, and if we do go to block, we're going to continue to look and see if it's getting better. If it's not getting better, then we may have to revisit it. But that's what we need to do as far as the evaluation committee. So I'm going to ask, as we go up one at a time, to kind of have the chair people of each committee go up and talk a little bit about what they found out in their work. So the first one is visitation committee. That would be Mr. Lister.
I'll get a little closer so I can see in my glasses.
Yeah, I think I need a little bit more.
Okay, so the most important thing, I guess, with the visitation committee was we had a broad variety of teachers who volunteered. We tried to bring someone from every department and a guidance counselor as well, so that we could get some feedback. We also asked the staff to provide us with questions and concerns that we could bring with us and address, so that we can then come back. And what we did with those questions was we gave them to, if they were departmental questions or specific to that discipline, we allowed that teacher to try and address that with the teacher that they were going to go and shadow for that block period. But generally speaking, we went with the committee, 10 to 13 of us roughly. We had a welcoming committee, if you will, meet us from each school. We went to Jackson and Brick in the spring of last year, primarily because they had done it for quite some time and we wanted to go. They had hosted a number of schools in the county as they did their own exploring. So we were comfortable going there. So we met with a welcoming committee, if you will, primarily of the principal or other administrators that were primarily involved in blocking that district. Allowed our staff to ask a number of questions that generally lasted 45 minutes or so. Then our teachers were paired up with teachers in their discipline. Might not have been their exact course that they're teaching, but in their discipline, and they were able to go and observe them in a full block period at 80, 85, 90 minutes, whatever that was going to be. Then we were able to come back together as a committee and ask questions again that may have been raised during our observation of those periods. And I think most importantly, we wanted our teachers to have an opportunity to have some time with their teachers to talk, but we also wanted them to have some time with the students at the building so that they could get a feel from those kids as to how they felt the block schedules were, whether they liked it or not. And that was pretty critical for us. That's what everybody was primarily interested in knowing. How are the teachers reacting to it? How are the students reacting to it? So after we followed up, then we would come back to school and meet as a committee and talk about our findings. And then we created a Google Doc and put our thoughts on paper so that that document could be shared with all of the other committees, and primarily the steering committee. So Jackson and Brick in the spring, they are 4x4 schools. And then this fall we went to Lacey first, and we finished with Wall Township. They're AB block. And so it was a little, it was interesting seeing both models. Primarily, we're still looking for the same thing. What was it like to teach in a 90-minute period or an 85-minute period? How are the teachers and how are the kids? Because whatever model you're in, that's essentially what you're dealing with. And so, a lot of the questions that the teachers had represent the concerns that they spoke about. Other things were, scheduling. What are our periods going to look like? Are we going to have multiple parent-teacher nights? Are we going to have a transition day between our first semester and our second semester? What do our duties look like? Are we going to have a duty? What do our preps look like? So we tried to get a lot of that information and come back and see how other schools were handling it, and then share it out with those people that asked, or certainly the committees. And some of the people on our committee were also on the steering committee, so we were able to share our information pretty easily. So regardless of where we went and regardless of what model we had, the students and the staff were both really, really happy about the block schedule. They enjoyed it. They were, in Brick and Jackson's case, those kids had not known really anything different because those districts have been doing block for quite some time. So it was really interesting for us to try and go to Lacey and Wall because they've recently gone to the block format. Lacey's only in their second year and Wall's, I believe, in their third. So we would have staff and students in those buildings that had had the experience in both a traditional setting and a block setting. And even in those schools, they were strongly in favor of the block experience. I'd be misleading you if I said it was unanimous in every school we went to. But clearly, the overwhelming majority of staff and students enjoyed the block experience for all the advantages that they've identified. And despite initial anxiety, stakeholders, transitioned smoothly. We've been piloting block for a few years. We've been working in these committees for a couple of years and talking administratively with the other schools. At some point you got to go, and there's not a whole lot more we can do to feel like we're ready. And some of those concerns are coming from the staff, but I think we can address those concerns. And the feeling we got talking to the other schools was, we think we're ready. It's time. We've been doing it for a couple of years to get ready and jump in, and I think everybody will, after working the wrinkles out, feel happy about it. The one thing that was interesting going to Wall, as opposed to the other schools, is they had a unit lunch, and that was one of the questions that came out of a number of our staff. Unit lunch is where the whole building shuts down for lunch. All the students eat at the same time. Monsignor Donovan, who we did not visit, has a unit lunch. Wall Township has a unit lunch for 50 minutes. And it was interesting. They had to convert one of their gyms into a partial cafeteria. They had a couple other different areas where kids could go get some food. But even talking to the Wall staff, after about 15 or 20 minutes, it just became a lapping, population. And there's, fires that essentially have to be put out around the building pretty consistently. So we as a committee got on the bus and we thought, in theory, the unit lunch is nice. You could potentially have club meetings. Kids could go to other teachers or to their teachers for extra help maybe each day. But the reality was, in talking to some of the teachers there, clubs were still meeting after school, and kids, were creating too many concerns for that to necessarily be the way that Manchester might want to do it. We've got, 30-some doors to leave our building, and with the whole population eating at once. And the other thing is, you can't just fit everybody in our cafeteria. Wall has a gym and a cafeteria, and they allow kids to eat in the auditorium basically anywhere they want in the building. And we didn't feel like that was something that we wanted to try and do. So we shared that with the steering committee when we came back.
Go ahead.
So I guess I was going to ask you this, because it's that one. I saw that it's incorporated into third block, but how would that work exactly? So I guess the lunches would be staggered.
Yeah, and the one good thing about...
Oh, you're talking about...
Oh, you mean, okay, all right, that's good.
Good
Thanks,
evening.
Steve.
I was involved with the scheduling committee, working with the high school administration on our master schedule. Our three kind of goals in our action plan, we focused on what would be the impact of a block schedule on our courses, what would be the impact of block schedule on our daily bell schedule, and then the schedule from September to June, the big picture. So we looked at those, and I'm going to talk a little about what we kind of discovered. And really our job was to kind of bring to light what are those issues. We weren't solving them, we weren't having all the right answers, but what would be the considerations as we investigate block schedule, what would be the things that we would have to consider. So looking at the impact of courses, we had representatives from all the departments on our committee, and, oh, you can go back, I just have one slide. And what were their kind of concerns in our first meeting? What were some of the concerns general? And some of those concerns went off into the other committees. So just focusing on that and getting the conversation started with teachers and courses. What are some of the constraints? So like world language, what would happen if a kid took Spanish 1 in the fall of one year and didn't take Spanish 2 until the spring of a second year? So there's some classes that really need to be back to back, or not. We have to be mindful of how far apart they are spread. And that's something with student scheduling, the Power School program, and our guidance counselors reviewing schedules, we want to consider as we review everyone's schedule. The Power School configurations, you know, our program right now, master schedule, is configured for a traditional schedule. So there's some things that we have to work with our IT director and our guidance counselors are reconfiguring a lot of things. And that's just a technical aspect of moving to a block schedule. The new electives. Obviously there's an opportunity, as Mr. Trethewey said, for students to take more courses. And the art committee went back to teachers and said, what other electives would you be interested in? Supervising the science department, we had a lot of classes come up, such as an AP environmental course, forensic science, marine science. So these are courses that teachers would be interested in teaching that went into Ms. Raimondo's survey. One of the things this year, you know, we have already been piloting block, but this year 2 new courses were piloted. Phys Ed was the first time this year. We had a teacher who was interested in piloting and trying it out, and honors lab biology. So they're going very well, but we had an opportunity to pilot new courses this year. And the other thing is with considering for block schedule is lab sciences. Lab science classes, not all science classes have a 6th period that meets a double period all year. Our regular lab biology academic class, environmental science, anatomy, physiology, they don't meet for that 6th period. So a block schedule would give equity to all students in all science classes to have that long window of time to get those hands-on, inquiry-based labs in all of our classes that we meet. So that's an important component in looking at the constraints of our current schedule. We looked at the daily schedule, the Bell schedule. We also considered the pros and cons of a 4x4, an AB, a hybrid schedule. We looked at the time frame, the 85 to kind of 88 minutes working in our contracted time that we have. We talked to lunch, what are the lunch considerations? And so for period 3, what would that look for? Because, you know, working with Sodexo and making sure that our lunches can fit within a block period of time, but ultimately to have 4 lunches to accommodate all the students. There would be 2 periods. There would be a block period, a lunch. There'd be a lunch, a long block period, and then 2 lunches would require a split time. So one would be maybe an hour, and then a lunch, and the remaining time, another period lunch would have maybe half-hour lunch, and then an hour of time. And so that's another thing to consider is which classes can we split. And there's some classes like a science or phys ed that we couldn't. So those are things that we brought to consider in our committee. Things also looking at is our homeroom, our assembly schedules, our delayed openings, our testing schedules, and vocational. So again, our committee is looking at what are the things we have to consider and be mindful in a block schedule. Also looking at the big picture, the calendar, the whole year. What are some things that would be impacted by block schedule? Looking at back to school events and conferences, our grading, our marking periods, midterms and finals. Also looking at attendance policies, just revamping them, demerits, school trip guidelines, we might need to consider that. So a student, you know, all trips aren't scheduled in one semester versus another semester, impacting attendance. Athletic eligibility, just reconfiguring that with credits, being eligible. And then also something like a transition day, a break between the semesters. I was fortunate enough this past Monday to visit Jackson Memorial with our AP Chem teacher to look at, for example, they have a very strong AP program. They have a course called Lab Chem 2 Honors. They also have block scheduling. And so we were able to observe a block lab period for the Lab Chem 2 Honors class. And that's a course, you know, one of the things we struggle is enrollment in AP Chem. And it's a very, very rigorous course. And how can we get kids into that course? And so we went to visit them. We were able to get a lot of feedback from the teachers and students in the class. We asked them, why are you taking this Lab Chem 2 class? Why are you are you going to take AP Chem? What do you like about block schedule? And they were very positive about it. And to hear it from students was really helpful. And the course is designed all about lab experiences, being a scientist and doing those hands-on experiences. They work individually, they're responsible for their own labs, they don't work in groups of 2 or 4. And in the class, she got them situated, she reviewed the goals of the lab, she talked about the math calculations for 20 minutes, and then they had an hour to work, uninterrupted, on the lab experiment, running titration labs, experiences. They were doing back titrations, which is something you might see, you know, in a junior, sophomore, you know, second year of college. And so that's a course that, you know, we think might benefit our students to bridge the gap between chemistry and an AP chemistry course. But we couldn't offer it in a traditional schedule. It's something we can have an extra honors level science course for students because they have opportunity to take more science classes. So that was a great opportunity this week, just reminding us why this might be a good opportunity. So a lot of things to consider with the schedule, a lot of work still ahead of us to do, but from our committee meeting, we were able to identify a lot of things to consider.
These are things that come up. I think that the visit to Jackson came up because our chemistry teacher had a little concern of how it would look like. So those are the one nice resources. We were able to move them to Jackson and see what exactly. And I think she had most of her answers, her questions answered. And the difficult thing for me is I've been all through this, but I don't want it to be from just my aspect. I want the committees to come up with their own ideas and come up. Many of those questions we've dealt with, I know I've dealt with before, but it's good that you're coming up with answers and something obviously from a different perspective, and that's good. So I think we're on to curriculum. Okay, Tracy.
Like the other committees, the curriculum committee had members from all the departments, including guidance, CST, and also our media specialists served on the committee. And I think that was important, especially for this committee, because curriculum is the heart of what a school is about. Curriculum and instruction go hand in hand. And so we have to make sure that that all fits in with whatever new model we're moving to. We also had an action plan that we set up to move forward, and 3 of our main goals we looked at is look at our current curriculum and see if we had any concerns about how that might have to change moving forward. Also researching the curriculum and courses that other schools had that might be opportunities for us if we moved forward. Investigating possible new courses. I have some cool information on that in a little bit. And also collecting concerns of the staff and if there are some sort of special circumstances. Mr. Trethway brought up about advanced journalism or BIN. Those are some of the things we needed to find out through conversations with teachers and departments. Okay, so what were some of those action steps? So we looked at the curriculum and program of studies from other districts. We set up an after-school meeting for people who aren't on our committee, because I didn't just want the people on the committee, because other people may have a different course that nobody else teaches that they wanted to come to. So we set up kind of like an open house meeting where people could come in and give some sort of concerns about the particular courses, and also offer some suggestions for solutions and courses moving forward. That was held in June. We also reached out to the departments regarding course possibilities. So in addition to those conversations, we had a survey for the staff where they were able to suggest courses. That was also done through Google Form. And 35 people did the Google Form, but then I had a significant number who didn't feel like doing the Google Form and just emailed me or came to me in conversation. From that pool, they came up with a number of courses, and we'll see that. And then we surveyed the students to see which courses they would have an interest in. And when you see the number of student responses, it's pretty overwhelming how much they participated in that. We also have to collaborate with all the other committees, because scheduling has to do with curriculum and steering, and so that was a big part of the conversation. And also we had to collaborate with the curriculum department, because we can't just create new courses, there's a process, and we have timelines and things like that. Okay, so when we surveyed the staff of new courses, every department that's up there made suggestions. And so we came from all those departments, and Linda, just click one more time. And they suggested over 60 different courses possibility. Now, obviously, we can't roll out 60 new courses in a year, so we have to figure out where we're moving from there. These are some of the courses that they came up with, and this is what we used to create the student survey. The survey was given to students, or offered to students in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, because they'll still be with us next year. Seniors may have wanted to take a course, but if they won't be here to take it, it's kind of useless information. And so we had 444 responses to the student survey. 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, that's about 750 students. So it's about 59% of the students in those grades respond. After that, we followed up with the staff in each department to see who might have an interest in teaching the course. Because you can create a course, but if nobody wants to teach it, you're not really going to be able to run it well. And so then we got feedback in addition to see how that goes. Now, our next steps moving forward, we have to create courses, and also budgetary concerns. You know, one course that was suggested was a philosophy course. We have no materials. So that's not just a teacher, that's a whole program. And so are we ready to do that? And do we have people who are qualified to teach those things? So this is one of the more exciting areas because, as Mr. Treadway said, our kids are getting new opportunities. You know, forensics was up there, history of the 60s for our history kids were up there, new AP opportunities, AP environmental, comparative, thank you, I blanked out on that one. And so in each department, Project Adventure as its own course. You know, we have the Project Adventure course that we have all the materials and we have trained staff, but it's only one part of phys ed, where now students who like that can become an entire course. And so students who have an affinity for history or science or math, someone recommended discrete math and Calc BC, which is above the calc that we teach. Now they have the time and the availability to get to some of those courses that they may not have had before. And that's it.
Professional development, my turn?
It's your
Oh, my turn.
I would say my committee is the most exciting committee, but I'm just saying. Our committee got together and we too were comprised of teachers, and they really did a great job. They created a strategic action plan, and in that strategic action plan they identified some areas. First of all, they wanted to become familiarized with the different block models, and basically to base our professional development on the felt needs of staff. Because just like we differentiate for our students, we want to differentiate professional development according to our staff needs. So some of our committee members did go on visitations with Mr. Lister's committee. We put out a survey. The committee developed a survey, put that out to staff, and overwhelmingly, the responses, the three main areas they were concerned about were time management, classroom management, and student engagement. So that, to us, equals planning. How do I plan for this block? So originally we had said, you know, we were going to start professional development in February. We said there's no way we can wait. So October 12th in service, Tracy and I developed a workshop on how to plan for a 90-minute block. So we figured whatever model is chosen, that 90 minutes would be a good benchmark time frame, and it would give the teachers a framework. During that time, we provided sample activities to do during a 90-minute block. Activities such as jigsaw, Socratic seminar, stations, advanced organizers, general tips about pacing. That seems to be a very big concern amongst teachers. We provided resources and sample lesson plans. Teachers actually worked in groups to develop lessons that they could implement in block schedule using chat stations. We have monthly committee meetings with the committee in our departments. There's another meeting we met in December. We just met with our social studies and English department and really listened to some of their concerns, had those conversations, and teachers basically overall, they in the end said we're not averse to moving to a block, we just are concerned about which model we're going to move towards. That was their basic. So our job as the professional development.
No, that's really what we're looking at. And they don't know a lot of things that are going on, and we haven't given them all that, but we're still in the process of looking. I wanted the committee to do a little bit more of the work, and they did do a lot of that. But our next step, and this is the important part here, is really getting the information out, seeing where the concerns are, and seeing how and if we can address those concerns, because those are really big questions. The first part of it is meeting with the staff to address their concerns. And I know Diane and Linda and Tracy went around to a couple different departments and got their concerns on index cards. My goal was to tell them, give me their concerns. In January, I'll be meeting with each one of the departments and looking at their concerns. And I'll be honest with you, the concerns they came up with are right on. They would be the concerns that I have. They were the concerns that we had in Jackson 20 years ago, and they're legitimate concerns about teaching in longer periods and the retention, and what about full-year courses. All of those things were great questions. All of those questions could be answered, but they have to be able to be addressed really in small groups, and every department's a little different. I can tell you right now, there's departments that are just ready to go with block schedule. You have an art department, what better meant, they want to work in 85-minute blocks. They don't want to work in 25, 30 minutes and then clean up and get the materials up and clean up. Those departments like art, home ec, family and consumer science, physical education, the technology part, those things, the TV studio, they're ready to go right now because those courses are just geared for that. It's the other courses and even the science classes where you have the ready labs. They're ready to go right now. The other courses are things that they have to look at and see how they can teach differently because the education part is different. I mean, I taught math years ago, and I thought I was doing a good job, but I would not be teaching the same way now. It's a totally different ballgame. You're not showing somebody how to do one problem and then giving them 30 chances to practice. That's not the way we do algebra. It's their geometry. It's much more demanding than we used to do. I mean, it was not unusual for me to have 35 students in the class, but that was easier to teach than some of our classes with 20, where you're differentiating instruction, going into groups, doing all that. That's much more challenging. So to have that extra time to be able to individualize is so important. But I'm looking forward to that because this is where we really get to the nuts and bolts and say, what are your real concerns? Not the ones that you think there might be a problem. What's the concerns and how do we answer it? And again, I was fortunate because there were at least 4 or 5 teachers I met in different subjects. And they had concerns. And after I sat down, it was like, okay, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. And that's really where we are right now. That's the part with the staff sitting down with the departments. And the concerns that they had, like I said, were right on. And they were concerns that I would have. But they are things that we can address. Other things with meeting with parents, that's the other part. What are the parents doing? They need to get that information. And that's really where we're going to generate those meetings in January, where I'll sit down and I'll work with parents and talk about the different things and listen to some of their concerns. I mean, they have concerns right now about things. They have concerns about students going to college and having to pay for remedial classes, paying for college classes where they don't get any credit. That's a concern for them. And we've gotten that from people at the park meetings. That's a legitimate concern. Are my child ready to go into a college? Do they have to go here, or do we have different opportunities? So there's going to be some good questions from the parents. And the same thing with the students. The students have a lot of questions because not all the information is out there yet. And we're looking at different, like you said, different schedules and so forth. But how is it going to affect the students? And again, it's things that we went through in Jackson years ago, very similar. Because anytime you make a change, it's error. There's no question about it. And to go from all of a sudden things that I've been doing all my life, 8 periods, and this is where I'm going. And it's going to be especially challenging for our seniors next year, if that's the move. And when they're always going to say, well, this is my senior year, why do we have to change it now? And there's always going to be a senior class. And I understand that. And those are things that they have to get out and they have to tell me what the concerns are and some of the concerns are going to be very legitimate. Some of the concerns are going to be something that really will never materialize. So those meetings are going to be very important in January. Additional school visits is needed. As things pop up, we have a lot of opportunities that we didn't have in Jackson before because we have schools around here that can show them what they're doing. The biggest thing when we did it in Jackson is when teachers sat down with other teachers and said, oh, you're teaching it this way? Oh, I can do that. These are my kids. You're teaching algebra? I can teach algebra. This is what I would do. And that really gave, it's different coming from the superintendent or the principal saying this is what you can do, but when a teacher sits down with another teacher, that's really where it comes in. And when students talk to other students, and that's an opportunity we'll give them, when students talk to other students in that class, in a block schedule and say, what do you do here? That's a whole different venue, because they're not hearing it just from me, but they're hearing it from them. So really, what we're asking is, don't be making any decisions or any judgments until you get all the information. And that's really the January issue of what we're doing. And really, as far as the decisions basically, really, you know, I try to base my decisions on three things. Either direct experience, and I was very fortunate to be a part of that experience in Jackson, starting from scratch. You can make it based on information from direct experience, and we're fortunate. Now, I'll be honest, when we visit Jackson, they only know block schedules. They don't know the changeover. So it's tough to talk to students in Jackson about what do you think about the block schedule, because that's all they know. That's what they've been doing 20 years. When you go to a Lacey school, which is fairly new, they've only done it one year, or you go to Brick, who's only been doing it 3 years, that's a little different conversation. So those students had to adjust from a traditional to block. Those students will tell you, well, this is what we had to adjust, or this is what we had, but we still like it. And really the research, and there's a lot of research out there, and we talk about this all the time, and I've seen a lot of the studies. There's, like anything, if you push the internet button for advantages to block scheduling, you get this much, and if you push the other button that says disadvantages, you get this much. It's the same. It's how we look and what's worked for us. And really, what I look for is schools at Ocean County that have similar students with similar challenges and similar demands. And that's what I really want to take my information from and see what's working there. So that's kind of an overview of it. It's not in as detailed as it's going to be when we have the conversations in January with the parents and the students and the staff more. But that, I think, gives you a flavor for what we're talking about as far as a block. Because it's something that, you know, we really need to look at for our students. And I think it's so important, and I know change is difficult, but if once we sit down and talk about the information, I believe it's going to be very good for us. So that's why our presentation. Does anybody have any specific questions or general?
Hey, over the next couple of months, we're probably going to have some additional subcommittee meetings of the board to go over all of this and we'll formulate some of our own questions, which hopefully you can get the answers back to us, or maybe even we can have an opportunity to go visit some schools.
I would say
somebody that works in the school.
Yeah, we can do that. You can do that. You're welcome to the parent meetings and student meetings. I think those are going to be very important meetings to be a part of and listen to it. And as we've been doing right now, if you have specific questions, certainly ask me, and I'll get you the information. Like I said, I've been through this. It's important for them to go through that process too, not for me to just say this is how you do it. But I know some of the pitfalls when we first started. Little things like when you do the schedule and the student takes Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, and the computer program puts Spanish 2 the first part of the year and Spanish 1 the second half of the year. You can't do that. You have to do it. You have to do it differently. So there are things now in the computer programs that gear that. And when you look at a schedule, for example, if you do 4 and 4, you weight the schedule so you don't have math, science, English, history one semester, and then physical education and all your electives the second half. So there are ways to balance that, and those are things to look at.
And the other thing is, there's going to need to be some lead time for this, right? There's going to be some training with staff. There's going to be some reworking of courses and schedules and all that stuff. So backing off from September, assuming that we wanted to do something in September, when do we need to make the go or no go decision?
Well, I would say because of the electives that you're choosing from, I think you want to be making that decision no later than February. And I will tell you this, and we are so far ahead of where we were in Jackson as far as staff development. Because I'll tell you, our staff does a lot of these things that we need to do in the block. When I was in Jackson, we weren't able to do it because cooperative learning was the buzzword. That was like, oh, you work in these groups. That was a buzzword. Now, our teachers do it all the time. They differentiate instruction. They do that. They work with technology all the time. they do many of those skills. Their biggest thing is being able to change 2 or 3 times during it and being able to pace their classes. That's really the key, is going to be the pacing part. And that's something that they'll learn as we go. I also told them that we would be open to looking at possibly half days somewhere toward the end of the year if they need to, and have half of the student day and do some staff development there if they need it. They've had opportunities, and I can only tell you my experience in Jackson was when we did the professional development, very few people signed up for professional development when we first started the block schedule. Around October, November, we had a ton of people wanting to do professional development because they knew how it was going to hit. But like I said, we're so far ahead now because our teachers are doing a lot of the things that we need to do, where in Jackson, we were just starting to do that because that was the trend then. Cooperative learning was a trend then. Now, our teachers do that. They just don't do it in the time frame that they could be able to do it.
Thank you. We'll be talking about this over the next several months, I'm sure.
Good. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
We give Dave a couple minutes to refresh, and then maybe you can go through your report.
A couple of quick things, minor just on the agenda. There's a resolution on the agenda just to approve the audit that was presented tonight by Mr. Gannon, 1415 audit. No findings, no corrective action. You see a change order on the agenda related to the school improvement project. This change order impacts MTES. What it's for is when they came in to do some of the lighting there was some pre-existing conditions that we had to kind of work around. So the first part of that change order is to essentially do a workaround for some of the lighting we had installed in MTES. And the second part, at the district's request, we requested that the contractor put in 4 variable frequency drives, or VDFs, which is HVAC equipment. It helps control, gives us better control over the new HVAC equipment that's going into the building, and it'll also help with energy efficiency once everything's up and running. So that's on the agenda for approval. And lastly, just a quick negotiations update. The 2 negotiating teams met on December 2nd to continue contract negotiations. It was a long session that night, but it did result in some progress. There are still a handful of issues still on the table that we need to discuss. Our next meeting with the mediator is scheduled for February 11th. He may have an opportunity to meet with us in January if his schedule opens up, but as of now, we're slated to meet on February 11th to continue negotiations.
Back again. Just a couple things. SOAR program is on the agenda tonight, and that's our alternative program. And just to just quickly review with the public, that's the program that Mr. Adams did a presentation on previously. We did review that program with the county superintendent, his office. We made some small changes, and with those changes and the things that we have, I'm recommending to the board that adopt that program for the time being, to see if we can help some of our students who are disaffected get back on track and get them to graduate. Kevin's Kids, Mr. George, anything that you want to say quickly on the Kevin's Kids? Obviously, I know you were the point man, you did a great job, but as Don said and the people up here, a lot of people obviously in Manchester chip in for that program.
It truly is inspiring and just a true community effort, and to thank the board and the administrators and the principals, the committee members who work tirelessly on behalf of these families, buildings and grounds, custodial staff, community members, senior citizen groups. Everybody just did such a fantastic job. We helped close to 200 families and over 400 kids enjoy Christmas. And one little heartwarming story I'll leave you with was earlier this week after the pickup on Sunday, one of our elementary teachers was doing some journaling, and a little boy started to cry, and the teacher went over and said, "Is everything okay?" And he said, "I'm crying tears of joy because my family decorated the tree last night." And that was the tree that was donated on Sunday as part of Kevin's Kids. And so it truly is an inspiring and awesome thing to be a part of, and just incorporates everything that's amazing about this community. So it was fantastic.
And You know, there's a lot of stories like that, and I think sometimes we tend to think that, oh, well, all these kids are getting the toys and that, but it's a lot more than that. Obviously, there's some toys in there, but when you see kids getting winter coats and things like that, that's really special. And I know a lot of board members were involved. We had some rappers up here.
I was pretty impressed with this.
Rapping with the W.
Yeah. Very good.
I was pretty impressed with Mr. Payne. He had a customized gift wrap.
Yeah.
On his own table.
Yeah, it's called Mrs.
Yeah.
I was kidding staff saying that I had a wrapping tracker on my phone, and I think that table put out some serious gifts wraps.
I think has been doing it for a lot of years doing it, and my ability was putting the toys in the big bag and wrapping them.
I think you got a couple of the labels mixed up.
Yeah. We did have a superintendent's advisory committee the other night, and we had a very nice showing, parents there. I want to thank them for coming out. We did a little presentation on our Alice, which we'll be working with the police in January also. And as you know, unfortunately, in the news, you see more and more of some tragedies out there, and it's important for us, for our students, to be prepared and our staff to be prepared in case of that. Yes.
Excuse me, would you just explain for everyone's benefit what
Yeah,
Alice is, so
I'm sorry.
people aren't guessing?
I did forget that. We did mention this early on in the year, but just as a quick note, ALICE stands for, I hope I remember this, Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. And basically what it says is right now we are in the process of we do AL. We do an alert and we lock down. But as the police and in the training that we have shown, that lockdown is good in certain cases, but not in all cases. And the perfect example is if you know somebody is coming in, an intruder is coming in that door, and I'm here, you have two choices. I could sit here and pretend like he's not going to be here, or I could run out that door. And I think most of us would say, I'm going to evacuate. So there are options to be had by our students and our staff, and giving them those options will increase our chances of being successful. I won't use the other words, but the bottom line is you need to have options. We need to give our staff options. We need to give our students options. And there's no one size fits all. In a matter of working through as we said, the alert is important. The lockdown is very important, but we also talk about barricading doors and so forth. We talked about some different things with Regional Day School because some of their students are not going to be able to be as mobile and evacuate. So there's additional things that we're looking into to be able to barricade those rooms. And you're really looking, the response time was like 5 or 6 minutes for the police, and that's phenomenal. But when you think about it, unfortunately, some of these shootings are started and over in probably 2 to 3 minutes. Standing about 4 minutes. So 5 or 6 minutes is just too much. So the police are obviously on board with what we're doing. They're very supportive, and we're going to obviously tap into them when we talk about doing parent and staff workshops in January again. We gave the staff an overview in September. Alex and I kind of split up the staff, and we did that. But it's a matter now of starting to implement. We'll probably start at the elementary school. But again, it's a matter of giving staff and students options to do it, and that's really the important part. But thank you for reminding me, Mr. Moore. Park scores, Mrs. Pedrosa and Mrs. Saraceno and Mrs. Moore, Mr. Adams set up a parent workshop to talk about the park scores. Our park scores are in with the high school. The high school scores were in, and the individual student reports were in, and we actually gave those out to the parents. They were mailed out, and we planned it so 2 days after the reports have gotten to the parents, then we had the parent meeting to try to describe or explain what the park scores were. Now, we just received the 3 to 8 scores for park, and when they will be going out at the first of the year, they'll be going out in January, and once those the test scores go out to the individual parents, we'll have a parent meeting within the next day or two to do that. Because it's important once the parents get that to be able to interpret what it means. It's a totally different report than we got from ASK or HESCO or anything else. So it's important once they get it to be able to have access to information on how to interpret that score. In January, we'll be giving a report to the board about our test scores in general over the whole district. That's each school and those scores. That'll be given in January. You knew that, Mrs. Pedrosa, right? Okay. That's the scores that we're going to be doing in January, and that'll be to the board. Some schools, I can be honest with you, some schools are waiting till January to give out any test scores. We felt that once we had the high school so early, we were able to turnkey it, so we did do that, and we'll run the 3 to 8s coming up after the holidays. ROTC evaluation, very quickly, we had an evaluation ROTC, and just to say, there are a number of categories. You either get an outstanding, you get an above average, an average, or below average, or unsatisfactory. And none of the categories were we unsatisfactory, and none of the categories were we below average. Interesting, and I think it's a tribute to our school district, is we had one outstanding category, and that's the highest mark you can get, and that was the school system's support of the program. And I think that shows a lot. And there are, every time we get the evaluator come in, he's very impressed with the parent support there. We do it in the gym, and a lot of the parents are there to support the ROTC program. So we have 4 above averages, 2 averages, and 1 outstanding. They were very impressed with our group and our instructors too. They actually singled out one of our instructors as being an outstanding individual. So kudos to the ROTC program and what they do, and thanks to the parents and the district for their support. And we already did the board member recognitions.
Good. All right, are there any community things? Is there committee reports?
There's something I'd like to address about the whole.
Any public participation on agenda items only? None. Any old business or correspondence? No. Very good. Moving into section 1, action items, A minutes. 1 and 2, need a motion and a second.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Guy?
Yes.
Mr. Candelo? Mr. Oliver?
Abstain.
Mr. Bermudez? Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Walter?
Abstain.
Mr. Page?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes, B travel, number 1. Number 7.
Make motion.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Hudak?
Yes.
Mr. Candelo?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver? Yes. Mr. Bermudez?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Walter?
Yes.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes, C, we're going to vote to accept the annual audit report that was presented this evening.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Hudak?
Yes.
Mr. Candelo?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Bermudez?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Walter?
Yes.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes. D, the change order, which Mr. Lorenzen spoke of.
Make motion. Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Hudak?
Yes.
Mr. Candelo? Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Bermudez?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Walter?
Yes.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes. Section 2A, administrative, numbers 1 through 3.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Hudak?
Yes.
Ms. Candelo?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Bermudez?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Walter? Mr. Pete?
Yes, 1 and 2, no number 3.
Mr. Webster?
Yes. Do you have some comments to make, Mr. Pete, about the program?
My major concern with the health insurance program is the cost analysis. I'm just not sure that it's physically where it needs to be.
Okay, thank you for that. The personnel, numbers 1 through 31.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please. Roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to wait a little while.
Ms. Hudak?
Yes.
Mr. Candelo? Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Ms. Bermudez?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Walter?
Abstain on number 1, yes on all the others.
Mr. Pete?
Abstain number 1, yes on all others.
And Mr. Webster?
Abstain on number 1, yes on all the others. Congratulations. And just for the record, the abstentions by several of us, we have relatives who work in the district who are at the elementary level and could be subject to either supervision or performance evaluations by Ms. Nichol. So under the new rules of engagement that have been handed down by the state, we're no longer allowed to vote on that kind of stuff.
Nothing personal.
Yeah, thank you.
C, student personnel, numbers 1 through 4. Roll call, please.
Mr. Yak?
Yes.
Mr. Carrillo?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver? Yes. Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes. D, special services, number 1. Roll call, please.
Mr. Yak?
Yes.
Mr. Carrillo?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver? Yes. Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes, section 3A, finance, numbers 1 through 5.
So moved.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Yak?
Yes.
Mr. Carrillo?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes. Public participation on any items?
Dan Staples, MTEA. Just a quick comment. It's 10:02, so I'll spare everybody the soliloquy. But I've been coming to these meetings for a long, long time, and I noticed, especially back in May with the insurance issue, that this room was crowded, packed to the gills. People were actually behind the Board of Ed. We were behind you while you were doing the meeting because there was no place to stand. And then June, obviously another big turnout, and now it's kind of a trend. It's not really an anomaly. Tonight, I noticed the fire code for this room is 64. There was more than double that in this room, which creates a tremendous safety hazard. And also for the comfort of the participants, all the stakeholders that come here, the educators, the staff members, the parents, the administrators, everybody, they kind of deserve to be comfortable. And those VFW guys that came and gave that award, they were 80 years old. I was talking to the one guy who did 30 years in the Navy and has been retired for 27 years. They were standing and they were quite uncomfortable because they didn't have a place to sit. You'll notice in the front there used to be 4 rows of chairs. I notice now there's only 2 rows of chairs. Those chairs sit empty, and as they're just about empty now because people aren't comfortable sitting there. And it's kind of like if you get here early, you get the Mr. Lokerson seat, which is nice and comfortable. He's chilling. If you come here late, you end up in the bullpen with the Maloneys, and you're kind of back here feeling like a second-class citizen. So I think for the sake of us all being on equal footing at a board meeting, and to want people to come and participate, we have a newly refurbished auditorium that seats a lot of people. It's got comfortable seating. It's got great lights. I know this is kind of a cozy room, but it seems that it's kind of not useful for this, and it's probably not even legal for this. So I guess my question is, respectfully, what's the process to change venue? I mean, is that something that needs to be officially requested, or to have that considered for future meetings?
We'll take it under advisement.
Yeah, we'll take it under consideration. The only thing, again, in most cases, we like this venue because it lends more for an easy conversation, whether when you're in the auditorium, whether you're up on the stage or not. It doesn't necessarily, but if there's a lot of people, obviously, the board will consider,
Okay, 'cause I mean, I go to board meetings all over state, Mr. Webster, I'm sure in your position you probably do as well. And I've been all over there, and you go to Toms River, they have an auditorium set up, and if 700 Toms River residents want to show up to a board meeting, that's their right, and they shouldn't be made to feel uncomfortable. And most other places I do, they seem to make accommodations, and I just feel that here there weren't accommodations made, but somebody who's been working in the district for 30 years and is getting ready to retire shouldn't be looking around saying, I got a bum knee and I have no place to sit.
Hey, noted, thanks.
I'll make this short and sweet. Hello, my name is Faith Borelli, and I'm currently a junior. After reading several articles and viewing multiple social media posts, it has been brought to my attention that our teachers do not have a contract. As a student, I need to start off by saying I am honored to walk into class every day knowing my teacher is bringing home around $1,300 every 2 weeks, does not complain nor express it in the classroom to students, but still shows up every day willing to help and teach us. Teachers are continuously looking over our children as if they are their own. If a student starts to act funny or notice he or she has been very upset lately, without thinking twice, we'll go to guidance and tell them so that they make sure their student is okay. Parents may raise their children, but teachers teach them. In this day and age, it is sad to say that students actually spend more time with their teachers than they do their actual parents or guardians. I fear that by these teachers not having a contract and struggling to put food on their tables, it is going to affect my future education. By teachers taking home less, that leads to them having to get a second job most of the time. In doing that, it does not only affect the flexibility they can stay after school with other students and I, but it does take away from their family time and fully being a part of a child's life. Teachers are the face of this earth. Think about it. You would not be sitting in the chair you are sitting in right now, with the title you have right now, if it wasn't for a teacher. My dream job is to be a teacher, but seeing the way our teachers get treated makes me terrified for how the future will be, especially because my overall dream is to come back and give back to the school I graduated from. The school that shaped me to the young lady I am today. The amount of love and care that our teachers give to the students is remarkable and goes very unnoticed. From my understanding, teachers get paid a salary only until 2 p.m., but there's been multiple times I've stayed after school until 5, 6 p.m. getting extra help I need. That is 3 to 4 hours later than they get paid. My respect stems deep down to when I was going through some things at home, or even having a rough day, and although our teachers are fighting their own battles, stopped and heard me out. That is not their job, that's what comes with the job. No teacher has to coach long hours after school or do extracurricular activities with the students, but for the love of the students, they do. I'm not saying give our teachers millions of dollars in a raise, but give them something they can live off of. They earn their spot in the world, and because of them, they can change the world for some kids. It is Manchester teachers that inspire me to go out and fight for what I believe in and to be brave enough to present to you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else?
Yes. I too will comment on social media the last 2 weeks, but I'm not even going to comment. I just want to give a kudos or appreciation to Mr. Adams and our safety officers at Manchester High School for quelling the situation that occurred last week at our school. For a parent to actually say that Mr. Adams will suspend their student, their child, for dancing is ridiculous. And me being in law enforcement for 30 years, dealing with mass movements just like we do, that they do, every day when 700 kids are moving through the hall, I think they took the bull by the horn, they put the situation under control, and they deserve our applause. Thank you.
Anything else? Is there anything else from the board, Mr. Bates? Yeah. Obviously, when we meet again in January, we have our reorg meeting on January 6th, I believe, Mr. Lorenzen.
Yes.
Is that the date we all agreeing to? January 6th?
I think so.
Coming in? You can come late. I'd like to ask the board if we could tonight, let's nail down a date in January when we get together for a board retreat to discuss a lot of things I think we need to discuss. Some focused goals, where we're going, what we need to be doing, what we need to know, those sorts of things. We keep talking about it. Life gets in the way all the time. So if we can nail down the date tonight, I think that would be very good, because then Mr. Trethwaite can plan all his meetings with parents and stuff around it instead of us having to try to fit our meetings in around his meetings.
The meeting is separate from the regular meeting?
Yes, meeting separate from our, just a board retreat for us to go over, look at our goals that we established last July and what we're doing with those. Mr. Trethwaite's goals, what he has for the year, how he stood with those, we're looking at that. And also just to get our focus unified. I think we're getting a little splintered sometimes. Do that. We can nail down the date for that. I think that would be great for you.
Well, I don't think we can nail the date down tonight, but certainly tomorrow.
Yeah, you send something out.
Suggest some dates perhaps.
That aren't conflicts for you.
And then we're gonna have to advertise for that too, so we need to be cognizant of that so that we have a lead time.
Yeah, we'll probably have the reorg and then you'll have a regular.
Our regular board meeting's on the 20th, I believe.
We haven't really said it, but
We'll approve the meeting schedule next.
so we're gonna.
We need to make sure we will have the board member that evening, that the board member is available too. I wouldn't want to have a retreat where our
This is true, but I don't want us to wait like we've been doing and then calendars get filled up and like, oh my goodness, there's stuff that's coming in.
We'll send it out, just give us the dates that you can make.
Gotcha. Okay.
Anything else?
Have a good holiday. Everybody have a good holiday. Thank you.